Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Before we get into today's video, which is going to be on the angel Galgaleil, which is a bit of a mouthful as far as names go, who is the angel of vibration, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Anna and I own Lorena's Labyrinth, and I see my purpose and function of the channel to provide information to you that I've accumulated along the way that might be helpful to you as you raise your own personal vibration, okay, which is interesting, and raise your awareness and walk towards your divine pathway at best, and at the very least manage to enjoy greater positive I'm trying to think of the word. I have written transcripts as normal, but I like to sort of deviate from them and just go into a bit of a chat as well to keep it real. Basically, to help us to live lives peacefully, feeling that we're working to the best of our ability, that we're trying to be the best people that we can, and we enjoy the best quality of life that we possibly can do. So I want to sort of make the point that when we talk about Galgaleil, although he's not an archangel, he plays a very important role within the manifestation process. And, manifestation can be anything, which includes walking our divine blueprint. But also, if you're trying to manifest anything at all, he has got a function that's directly related to it. And to put this into perspective, for many people who struggle with concepts about life, and that angels are difficult to connect with, that they're unreal or whatever, I just want to remind you that this is just a human limitation, belief and thought until we actually make the effort to connect with them, which is a case of us raising our vibration. We probably will continue with that thought process that, it's all unreal, it's not possible to connect with them. But once we start trying, whether we believe in angels or not, when we do a few simple exercises, we start to actually feel the miracle of their energy. For them, it's a case of them showering blessings on us. But we as humans, from our limited, small self aspect, we see it as miracles. So without further ado, let's crack on. Let's get into it. So talking specifically about Galgaleil, his name is actually derived from the Old Testament and a word that, well, this is my understanding, okay, that is Galgal, Galgal, and apparently this means either a wheel or a pupil in the eye. And not that I'm fully, shall we say, full bottle on the Bible. This is information that I understand to be the case. But apparently in the Old Testament there was Ezekiel, who revealed to Galgaleil in his vision of God. Apparently he had a vision of the Creator. And what is described is, in my hearing, these wheels were called Galgal. Each had 4 faces, and the first was a winged creature cherub face, the second a human face, the third a lion's face, and the fourth an eagle's face. Now, interestingly, these are supposed to be if you look up the tabernacle or whatever, these are apparently represented on the tabernacle. And I only make reference for that because in modern times, of course, we get off into the fantasy stuff. Most people have watched TV. And I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark or something like that, where they were looking for the tabernacle. And I ended up doing some research on it years ago. And there were drawings, and it has been searched for centuries, a millennia even. They tried to find this tabernacle, which apparently has been described to have these images on it. But anyway, back to Galgaleil. We're talking about wheels spinning within wheels, and when this occurs, there becomes a vortex of energy, and it is the emotions that create the vibration through spinning up these vortexes. So to put this into perspective a little bit, his role is directly related to helping you, me, and any of the rest of us to raise our personal vibration through emotional release. And in this way, I'm being a bit repetitive, but I think it's okay to do that. In this way, it's kind of like whipping up a whirlpool of energy around us, right? You will know yourself that if you've ever watched a whirlpool in the lake or whatever, some of them start off quite gentle and slow, a bit like pulling the plug out the bathtub and watching the water go down the drain, while other whirlpools can be really big, very strong and powerful, and they can even be quite a destructive force if where you've got to stand back out the way. And this is when the energy is really high, when the wheels are spinning very fast. So, what we're looking at here and what I'm trying to explain and lead up to is when it comes to our personal vibration and the wheel spinning, if you like, or the whirlpool around us, what we create through our emotional release is what we're going to draw to us. So, if we're not really feeling anything terribly much, there's not going to be a lot of power or force in the whirlpool of energy, our vibration. If, on the other hand, we're feeling highly charged and we're releasing the emotions, strong emotions, if those strong emotions are based in an angry release, it can whip up a very powerful whirlpool around us. And it's a matter of directing that energy into healthy pursuits. There is more to this, of course, and I'll go forward with the next slide. Excuse me, smacking my lips. I'll go forward to the next slide and let's talk about that before we go into the rest of it. I'm going to talk more about the whirlpools shortly and be a little bit more descriptive as part of providing insight and understanding for you that you can relate to. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about the order or the hierarchy that Galgaleil works under, if I can speak. So, as we see here, he's one of what is called the third order inner angels, and they have a specific role as a group, okay? Because when we talk about angelic orders, we're talking, if we were to look at the human perspective, we would be talking about a group of people working on a specific project. Within the context of the celestial realms, you have groups of angels working on specific tasks with specific expertise. And by the way, there's no competitiveness on this level. They're not fighting and elbowing each other to be able to get to the top of the food chain. They are working genuinely together for this specific purpose. So their purpose here is to, as a group, to hear the creator wisdom, the voice of God, if you wanted to call it something else, and to be able to see using the inner vision, and so they visualize the idea, because everything happens telepathically. They're not got voices. They communicate via vibration and telepathy. So they hear the voice of wisdom. They then visualize the idea, because this is what we call the divine idea, and then they will broadcast this idea through to other angels as part of the creation and manifestation process. And as I've said before, this is based on feelings, or what some of us call emotions, and the vibration is transformative. So when we talk about what Galgaleil does, he is well, they're all multitaskers in different ways, but for Galgaleil, what we're looking at is an angel of transformation, and who helps to build the vibration of a person's aura and to sear away any of the obstacles that prevent a person from finding their unity with the creator and connecting. But I've got to say here, and I think this is really important, and sorry about that, I need to have a cough, so I had to pause it for a moment. I do have to say that as a team, what I love about this particular order is that their primary messages or teaching is to look inside of ourselves as opposed to going outside, as part of strengthening or creating and strengthening our connection, right? You will know yourself, the very fact that you're here watching this video or listening to me talk is because you are seeking for information outside of yourself. And that's fine if the person that you're speaking to, such as myself, turns around and says, well, this is my understandings, and they don't make categoric statements. I'm stumbling over my words this morning. They're not making categoric statements of this is the way it is, right? Because when somebody says this is the way it is, okay, straight away they're putting parameters and limitations on universal energy. But within my situation, I'd never say to people, this is how it is, and I know this to be true, and therefore this must be true for you, okay? This is where truth is personal, and each of us have to find our own truth. So the role of these angels, or this particular order, is to encourage people to stop looking outside of themselves and look for their answers within. Now, the beauty, of course, we all do seek to evolve and develop. So there is a benefit to communicating with other people and learning strategy. But at the end of the day, if somebody says something and it doesn't feel right, that doesn't make it wrong. It means that we need to go inside, have a look, see what we feel about it, and trust our own personal judgment. And other times it can be, and I have experienced this as well, that I'm not ready for some truths. Some truths are so big that I can't begin to fathom or process them until later on down the track. So it's about your own comfort. But anyway, let's go back to talking about the hierarchy here. Basically, what this order does is teaches us not so much to raise our eyes to heaven. Like you will get this image of when you're praying or calling upon Creator, you're on your knees and you've got your eyes either up, pointing upwards to heaven, or looking down at the ground. The bottom line is that these angelic order are saying you don't need to look anywhere because it lies right within you. You will have heard the sayings of the divine spark, the namaste, the Holy Spirit, whatever name we call it, the flame, the inner flame, all of this stuff. Whatever a person's religious faith or belief system is, they all talk about this being within the heart area, sitting in the chest space, kind of central to it. And this is what we call the divine spark. So what this hierarchy is trying to do is get us to go within and activate and inflame that spark, because it is the spark that enhances love, shall we say, because love is what underpins the divine connection. So we want to make that flame of love really big, because that's going to make the connection to the divine much easier. I hope I'm saying this effectively. And just a reminder here that angels don't communicate with a voice. Sometimes you will hear clear audio because these are psychic senses. But that is usually, I would say, even through a third-party spirit. Angels tend to communicate via telepathy, which is a vibration, and it creates a feeling or a sensation in the body. And even if they're giving us a cautionary message or something like that, I'm doing a video on guardian angels in the near future. Whatever they say is never going to be judgmental, negative, or critical. They will always be loving and supportive. And just a reminder here too, before I crack on with the next slide and get back to talking directly about Galgaleil, it's very important as part of this process of connection to really learn to determine the difference between the voice of mind and the voice of spirit and delusions of the mind. And you will get that information on the video called Zag-Zagul, who is the angel of wisdom. Anyway, I'll move on now. Let's talk about Galgaleil. So when it comes to understanding energy and vibration, I put these images up because before I spoke about the whirlpool, and I think sometimes a graphic or an image speaks volumes. It says what we would try and say in 1,000 words and makes it difficult. But before I talk about this in a little bit more detail, I want to discuss the fact that I think the problem that a lot of people have when it comes to discussing energy and vibration is that it's something that we can't see with our naked eye. Now, what I want to put to you and have you consider, at least when we're talking about energy, is that I would imagine that you don't have a problem with concepts of biology, cellular splitting, because these are scientifically evidenced and researched. We know that the body is made of a heap of cells that can be seen under a microscope, but when we look at it, for example, blood, if we cut ourselves and we bleed, all we see is a whole heap of blood. But if we put that blood under a microscope, we actually see what's broken down. Science has become so amazing that we can actually see the DNA. But science has not developed enough to be able to see things like the energy, the universal energy, and how it vibrates. So this is where we talk about energy being faith-based, or on the understanding of it becomes personal and a personal nature. So what I want to put to you is that when we look at these images here, we're looking at physical eddies and whirlpools. And these whirlpools, because we can see them, because they are physical, they have a force behind them that I think is gravity. Without me understanding all of science and all the rest of it, gravity is the driving force of these eddies and whirlpools, and the fact that we can see them with our naked eye means that they are actually low vibration. When we're talking about energy, we're talking about things and a cellular, well, we don't call it cellular matter when we're talking about energy, we call it atomic matter. And the atoms are moving so fast that we actually do not have capacity to see these atoms with our naked eye. So when we apply this to vibration, it's about the emotions. Instead of gravity, it is the emotions and the feelings that drive the speed and rate of which the energy and the atomic matter can move. Now, I'll give you a simple example before we go into asking some questions, right? One of the examples of what we can achieve, because when we can whip up this energy into an amazing whirlpool of vibration, we can achieve huge things. You know what I mean? We can basically achieve miracles ourselves. But this is because when we become highly emotively energized, we also get an adrenaline rush, and that becomes part of our physiology. So we have a biological and a physiological response to emotions, which of course everybody's going to know anyway, I think to some extent. But an example of miraculous powers, physical powers that can occur, is a very simple example of many years ago. I knew a lady who was actually quite tiny. She was Mauritian and Indian, actually. She was a mixed race, for want of a better description. And she shared with me a story about how she was driving her children down a freeway, and she was getting basically people driving past her raising their fists and all of this kind of stuff. And she was getting increasingly upset by the response of the drivers passing her. And then she checked the rear vision mirror and she saw that her young son actually had the window down and was throwing chips out the window. Nothing hard, but the chips were bouncing off the windscreens of the cars in the park behind her. So as they were overtaking her, these drivers, they were basically trying to tell her, sort your kid out that's in the back seat. Now, where we talk about using this as an example of emotional power, is that that isn't what actually enraged her. What enraged her, she was pretty upset, obviously, was she pulled over by the side of the road to have a conversation with the son. And without thinking about it, because it was a rainy day, she pulled into the soft part of the road and she got a car bogged. This is where I'm going. And she said it was at that point she became enraged. And she was so angry, she said, she was literally able to get the car out of the bog herself by picking up the back end of her car. And she was tiny and moving it. So that's an example of emotional energy becoming very powerful. But the thing is, too, when we talk about using emotions as drivers, I would put to you, think of a time when you also were extremely angry and what that feels like. Because anger is a good place to start when we talk about vibration, because it's far easier to recognize. It's when you get that bolt ripped through you. I bet you there will be a time when you will have known or felt this. And then other times there is that case where the vibration is so high. So we may as well say anger is very low vibration, yet powerful. But when we're floating on air full of love, that becomes high vibrational type stuff. So our feelings create an internal shift or movement within us, and this shift propels a change. And as we bring this change in, when we feel these strong emotions, it's an opportunity to be creative about how we want to change, what we want to see in our life, and how we're going to direct this heightened energy. Because must remember here that what we're feeling is going to magnetically attract to us whatever we're putting out there. So if we're angry, there's two parts to this, which we will talk about. Anger does need to be released, but it also needs to be directed. And the same with well, there is a risk actually. If you never release the anger and you hold it in, you're going to continue to draw situations to you that create anger and build upon the anger that you've got until it becomes rage. But if we work on bringing towards us love, then that's the kind of whirlpool of energy that we encourage through the angels to do. So, another vital part of information in regard to vibration and raising our vibration is that it is the intensity of the emotion that's actually really important. So, if you were seeking to raise your vibration to be able to connect with the divine and to raise this experience of life, which is more inclusive of love and positive experiences, then and if you're attempting actually to manifest anything, if you're doing that secret stuff and you've got your vision board up and you want to do it, want to create something, you have to be able to push through the heart chakra, right? Push it through the heart chakra and create an intensity of energy and an intensity of whirlpooling around. I've done videos on manifestation as well. Goodness, I'm stumbling over my words. You know what it is? It's because I'm distracted at the moment. I've got that little puppy and it's just running amok on me at the moment. But anyway, going back to this, the best example, as I say, images, is the toddler or the baby, okay? When you think about them and when they're having an emotional response, because communication, of course, is a challenge for them. They communicate through sounds and noises, I guess. When they are upset or unhappy, they are not filtered about it. They will throw themselves into that moment of howling. And then when they're happy, equally, they're going to throw themselves fully into each emotion that they're trying to express. And you will be able to see that emotion, the feeling that's going on with them, on their face, on the tone, the sounds that they use, and their body language. This is until we actually, as a society, teach them to manage and express their emotions in ways that we consider socially acceptable. So I guess everybody's got a memory of being told to sit still, be quiet, don't cry, don't be angry, control yourself, all of this kind of stuff. And while there is a relevance to that, we do have to manage our emotions in a social setting. The idea is that when we're trying to raise our vibration, that we create a safe space so that we can throw ourselves fully into the emotion, to raise it and to release it. Okay, we've got to express that emotion. So if we start to feel as though we're being controlled by people, there becomes this association that we are somehow restricted or even trapped. And when we suppress our emotions and we're not able to release them, it's as though we start to constrict our aura. We feel as though we are losing part of ourselves, part of our spiritual power. Now, from an energetic level, there is a truth to that, okay? Because when we constrict our spiritual energy to accommodate other people's needs, which is what's happening, when they're saying you need to stop crying, don't cry, and all the rest of it, they are telling us what they need for them to feel comfortable. And this does have to be respect. I'm not saying that we shouldn't respect other people's rights to be comfortable, but there is that important factor of do not deny yourself. You've got to create the space to have this release, because the denial of emotions becomes what can I say? It slows your own personal vibration and essence down. And so to step into your spiritual power, you have to be able to open the space around you, because once we cease to vibrate, okay, so this would be the worst case scenario, is if you've spent your entire life shrinking energetically, you will eventually lose your body, because it becomes a case of you've got to move on. So we could call that the death process, if you like. So the key message here is, if you want to raise your vibration, create a safe space for emotional release and throw yourself into it with full intensity. And if that means going out bush, because I'm Australian, and I've done it actually, going out bush and standing on a cliff top and just screaming and berating the world because X, Y, and Z is happening. And what you will notice is, once you've let those emotions out, you feel a sense of peace afterwards, okay? Anyway, moving on. So I hope I'm clearly articulating this, that each one of us has been born with the spiritual power of personal expression, and to be able to hold our space open with vibration, with emotional vibration, okay? It is the vibration that will draw the life force to us. this is putting it in different words than we've already discussed, through this electronically charged light substance that I refer to as atomic matter. And in fact, actually, if you go through the universal laws, if that's something that interests you, you will probably find content on energy and manifestation, that kind of stuff. In fact, you will definitely, I just can't remember which videos it is to help you out there. Anyway, the light source will connect us to the eternal creator aspect of self and divinity, and it is also what nourishes our spirit and our emotional and physical bodies. Now, if our vibration becomes low and dense and heavy, then the slower our emotions will vibrate, and we may start to experience feeling numb, emotionally numb. Now, I don't know about you, I can only speak from my own personal experience, and I know that I actually have experienced this as well, that when I've been put in a position of having to suppress my emotions for a long time and deny and repress, you may as well say, the core of who I am, eventually you start to feel numb. And this is what I referred to in the previous slide of as it's the start of the death process, okay, is when you are doing this whole self-denial. So the idea is that we reclaim spiritual feeling, and to do this we've got to recover and explore our true feelings. We've got to unpack our emotional baggage and release it, and this means taking a really scrutinized look, if you like, at our true feelings. And as we unpack these feelings and change our perception, this is what happens. We start to change the way we think and the way we act and behave. So, and we raise our vibration in this process. If you've got questions, if I'm not clear, please do make a comment. Or if you have a different idea about what it is that I'm referring to with this video, and if you feel that you can articulate it better, I certainly encourage and invite you to make comments. So what I do hope I'm making very clear here is that if you have become emotionally numb, this is a major problem, and the idea is that you've got to reclaim the capacity to feel emotionally. And when there is an unpacking to be done or a major release, say, the best time to start doing this is when something has gone, and I put it in quotation marks, when it's gone wrong and when we're upset. Because during these times we've got a heightened emotional response to these things. And also during these times, your guardian angel and your higher self aspect, the eternal self, and the beings of light who act as a support team can help you to recognize, the blocks and barriers that you experience so that you can actually break through them. Now, if these blocks and barriers or the suppression is really quite large, you might actually need to find yourself some earthly support. And by that, I mean a counselor or a therapist. If it's really bad, you might want to get some clinical support, because the power and the intensity of the emotions, they can be intense. Okay, if you've been suppressing for a long time and you've got a lot to release, this release is going to be very powerful. And I should point out, I'm giving you some invocation techniques in a little while, and actually I'm going to start and just put in a caution here. Actually, if you're burning through a lot of pain, because this is what the raising of the vibration will do, it is extremely intense and it is very powerful. And so it can be very rapid paced change once you call on this energy. And in those instances, it can feel, so I just want to caution you here, it can feel as you go through this process a little bit alienating. You can feel a bit lost. You can feel a bit adrift. You can become a little emotionally turbulent yourself. Think of that whirlpool going on. But it is transitional. Okay, it only lasts, in my experience, from my personal experience and the people that I've worked with, it generally only lasts for a couple of days at the most. I think the worst day maybe is the second day, and then by the third day the peace comes in. Okay, the process is pretty well completed. Because what happens is once we start burning through these barriers, it is the energetic structures are as real as the physical structures that we have around us. So you can recognize, as I say, with your eyes, you can see that you've got a house or a car that you drive, and you know that they take energy as well. But the energy structures are also very real. And if there has been this numbing, suppression, denial of emotions, they can become very rigid structures as well that have blocked you from feeling. So you can imagine, once we remove these structures, there can be a flooding of emotions that come through. Now, you are in control. I'm just going to give you this information as well. I hope, please keep listening to this video. If you start to find it to be a little much, you can always say, this is too fast. You can tell your guides and guardians, this is happening too quickly, please slow it down, okay? And they will certainly accommodate your needs. So, if you are feeling numb and there is nothing that's happened more recently that sparked a major emotional reaction for you, you can actually still do the work on raising your vibration through activities such as meditation, and help you to basically, you focus your intent, you put out there that you're meditating, you want to be able to find what is laying in the subconscious so that you can release it. I'm going to give you some invocation suggestions. I think it's on the next slide, it might be on the one after, but basically that you're invoking and you want to go inward and find the truth of your feelings, how you really feel, and then the process for you from there is to build this whirlpool up from your heart, this desire to find what is blocking and preventing you from your connection, because this is your freedom. If you can tap into this freedom, the love, or whatever it is that you want that is important to you, then you bring this yearning through. And what can I say about this? Actually, I need to process my notes here just a moment. Okay, so looking at that, when I talk about the yearning, it may not be strong for you yet because you've been numb and because of the repressed emotions. So the idea would be to meditate and state the intent that you want to find the yearning. You want that yearning to be there like a beam of light that pulls you through this darkness that may be your current experience, and to allow it to intensify. This intensity of the yearning and the desire is what will also build the vibration, and it will take you into that space of release. Now, to be clear, not all blocks are going to be involving tears or angers. Some blocks might actually be suppressed laughter, that you haven't managed to have a laugh at the silliness of the earthly existence or whatever. So one of the ideas that we're encouraged to do is to make sound. So meditate on how you're going to do a release, that you want to build this yearning, and then create the space to actually release. And you might find, so it doesn't need to take a lot of time. I've got to make this clear to people. You could sit there and just hold this thought, invoke, hold the thought, and try and build the intensity of desire to uncover, and then say, thank you very much for your time, always finish in gratitude, and then walk away and start doing something. And then you're going to find that an emotion will come up for release. Now, that release could be out of nowhere, you feel like having a cry. Well, what's that cry about? That's when you do some questioning. What's that cry about? Why do I feel like crying? What is there behind that? And then you track that back and you realize, that's what that's about. It could be about having a laugh. Like I say, it could be that you're guided to actually get physical or whatever. And it could even be that you're guided to cry like a baby. Now, for my own self, like I have said to people, the more I do this angel content and put it online for you, the more I actually am having the angelic experiences and having things happen. So, of course, I've been working on Galgaleil, and what I have found over the last couple of days is that I've had thoughts that have been suppressed and I didn't realize. So it works for me too. And some of these thoughts and emotions, oh my goodness me, they've taken me by surprise. And it's like, I need to get rid of that, right? Straight away, I just know I need to get rid of that. That's not a healthy thought. That's not a healthy emotion. I need to recognize, respect, honor the fact that I have had this emotion, and now I need to convert this into a positive emotion. And this includes painful experiences too. There's one, I won't go into the detail of it, but there was, Probably about 18 months ago, I experienced a betrayal from somebody. It wasn't a major betrayal, but I didn't realise that I was holding on to ill feeling about that. Anyway, it came to the surface yesterday, actually, and I was able to recognise it. And I thought, oh my goodness me, that takes me by surprise. My emotional response had been suppressed because I felt that it was unkind to that person, but that's a denial, right? So it came out. It took me by surprise, and I was able to transmute that into a more positive and kinder process and feeling, which involves actually forgiveness, which is in another video. So I've kind of touched on, actually, just talking about my own story about transformation with the process of unpacking our emotions. We emerge through a blockage and we find that our attitude changes, and consequently, so does our life. I'm not sure if there's any links here to be made, but after that release, I have had a positive blessing come through via a third party. I'm liking to think it's a blessing. I'm waiting to see the outcomes of it yet. But anyway, the idea is that as our attitude changes, so does our life. We're definitely going to feel more energetic. Life starts to become clearer. We start to feel more alive and alert. And the more emotional baggage we can release, the more we're going to be able to open to these higher energies, and the lighter we will feel as a consequence, okay? You're going to notice new people appearing in your life. You can fully expect to be making new friends, being receptive to new ideas, and experiencing even improved health and vitality. And you will find that your connection to the divine, angels and spirit, is going to improve. It's going to get stronger. And then this has a flow-on effect. As your own personal vibration raises, you get to see improvements in your family relationships as well as your living conditions. It's actually pretty amazing. It really is. Now, I'm in a new cycle of life again, so I'm going through a process of release, and will be sure to keep you informed when I can of the changes and the blessings and the miracles that have come into my life. Now, I think from that perspective, before I close off, I will just be honest and transparent with you and say, look, as much as I know this information and I've worked with it in the past, I had a number of life challenges that kind of took the stuffing out of me, and where I guess in many ways it would be a crisis of faith. The difference being that most people that have a crisis of faith lose belief in Creator. They might stop going to church. They don't believe in God anymore. They have a total loss of faith. For me, it was, I always knew that the angels and Creator existed. I think I lost faith in the process of life. It was, I'm one of those people, I guess, at different stages I've turned around and said, it's not God I've got a problem with, it's the other people on the planet, because we live in some crazy times. But anyway, where I'm going with this is I stopped asking the angels for help. I stepped back from the spiritual stuff and I repressed my own emotions. And what I'm doing at this point in time is I'm actually going through this whole process all over again, and doing this content for you guys is absolutely amazing. It's making some incredible changes to my physical existence. So I do encourage that you give this content a shot. So if you're interested in pursuing this and trying to raise your own personal vibration, I would recommend, I find this the easiest way, to create the space and to call upon the Creator and Galgaleil by way of invocation. And also, the way I do things is I would be lighting a candle and burning off some incense and creating a bit of a ceremony to mark the occasion. And then I would be basically doing the first line to raise my personal vibration and light levels to the maximum that I can carry under grace in the divine way. And I give thanks because I know that as I ask, so I receive. That would be what I would be looking at doing. But you can be as creative as you want, right? The sentence that I just gave to you, the first passage on this slide here, I consider that one to be enough, because as you raise your vibration, part of that is going to be the highlighting of the barriers and the blockages. But if you really want to fast track it, you can do it, right? So the idea is that you invoke and then you choose to be open to receive the information and the guidance that comes through to you. And that will be the truth of your feelings. And what can I say? Just that there's going to be a lot of feelings involved. And by the way, the feelings will be absolute love. It is amazing. Once you can actually feel that, it is beyond description. And so, this is what you're aiming for, but you've got to empty the glass of the dark stuff, if you like. And I shouldn't say dark stuff. If your body were, this is another saying that I give to people, if your body or your aura was a glass of water, all those painful experiences and emotions, they're sitting like the sediment, from a muddy pool of water or whatever. They sit at the bottom of this glass, and when things happen, they come to the surface. So what we're trying to do by using the energy is to bring the sediment to the surface and get it out the glass so that we can fill it up with pure water, if that makes sense. Now, I just think, I thought of something else too when I was saying about the caution. Sometimes it can happen really fast, the change. Once you put out there, if that's what you want, and you ask Creator and Galgaleil to help you in this process, they will respond, and it can happen very fast. And so for people who have been suppressing for a long time or numb, they might find, so I'm just giving you fair warning here, it doesn't happen to everybody, but it does happen to some people, that they will go through this. I say 3 days because in my experience it's all over and done with by 3 days, but they might have a period of time where their body actually physically responds to the raising of the vibration, and by that I mean they start purging. Now, I think you know what the word purge means, but just in case you don't, it could be that they start vomiting or they feel nauseous. Worst case scenario, they might get a bit of gastro happening loose, and they might be feeling quite unwell physically, but not so unwell that they end up needing to take time off work. When I've spoken to them, they've said things like, I felt a little unwell, and I wasn't sure if I needed to take time off work because I had to keep going to the toilet, things like that. But then it seemed to settle down. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this is because you are in control of this journey, okay? And if things start to feel uncomfortable for you, if you feel that you start purging and you don't want to purge because it's unpleasant, it is unpleasant, let's be real, you can ask the guides and the powers to slow the process down to something that you're more comfortable with. Now, on the other hand, people that have been to hell and back actually want to get through it as quick as possible. So I'm just giving you fair warning. It might be that this will happen, and if it does, you've got a choice there still. You can choose to go through it. It might be a violent release, and by that I mean a physically purging violent release. You might decide that because it only lasts for a day or two, that you'll stick with that you'll just push through the pain so that you can get to the other side. However, for other people, they might decide that, actually, I just want to slow this down. So I'm just reiterating to you, you have the power, you've got control. Whatever you decide, simply state it. You don't actually need to verbalize because the divine hears thoughts. It's all telepathic. But in my experience, if you do a verbal communication, it seems to have a much quicker response. So that's just something to give consideration to. So, my friends, as usual, the video has taken me much longer than I initially intended. So for those reasons, I'm going to close out and say that I hope the information I've given to you has been useful for you. Please do let me know the results if you give it a whirl. Let me know how it worked for you. In the meantime, I'm going to say love you, leave you. Have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care. Catch you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.